Hey guys, this is Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at the Buck 110 Slim Select. Yeah, there's all those words in there because right now, Buck, at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, 2018 really, came out with the Buck 110, a thin one called the LT, which is the most budget priced one that they've got. It's got nail nick, like the original 110, and a lanyard hole. And then they came out with the Slim Select. Well, not necessarily then. These were all processed probably around the same time at Buck, which is what this knife is. We've got thumb studs. We've got pocket clip that's right and left. And then they've got the Slim Pro, which is the same dimensions except for the handle scales are either micarta or G10, and the blade is S30V instead of your standard 420 HC. And what do they have? Another one as well. They've also got the new 110s that they came out, I think in 2017, 2018. I think 2018, where you can get the traditional Buck with the big bolsters and everything, but also with S30V instead of this. And then they've got one that's got bumps for your fingers on the handle, a whole bunch of different patterns of the 110. And I think there's a reason for it. Buck is realizing that they're getting old, meaning their audience, their customer base is a group of older men right now, basically. And I had one person who sort of tried to call me out on a comment that I made on Instagram, where I said, these are great, but I really, really wish they would put screws instead of these pins to hold everything together. Because right now what people want is to be able to do their own maintenance and stuff on the knives. And the guy said, over 90% of Buck's audience likes it this way. And I'm going, exactly. 90% of Buck's audience is getting old and dying, and they're losing market share like crazy, Buck is. And so Buck needs to get back in the market and get the younger audience, get the knife guys that are, the new knife guys that are coming around, and gals, and, attract their attention. That's why they've got things like this blue color, and they've got it in red, and they got it in chartreuse, and they got micarta, and they got G10 now. And so Buck is doing a lot of the things to try to modernize and attract the modern culture. I think one of the big things that they missed on is that these are still pinned together and not screwed together. Because I really do think most people like to be able to take their own knives apart, like to be able to do maintenance. They don't like doing those things, but they like to be able to do those things. But there are a few guys that really like doing those things, and those exist as well. Just the simple, if this thing gets all dirty, full of grime, really fine sand or something in there, what do you do about it? Well, you try really hard to flush it out, and that's all you can do. But if you can take it apart, you can clean it perfectly. So that's my big con for this knife. Do you want to hear all the pros? Stick around, because there's a number of them coming at you right now. Now, before we get into the details of the knife, I have a tiny announcement. There's one of my viewers, he's been with the channel for a very long time. He bought a TS Prof K03 sharpening system, that sharpening system that I just love. And he needs to sell it. And so he's looking to sell or trade that sharpening system. Now, this is an expensive sharpening system. I don't know what features he all has what options he all has, but the basic system of the K03 with a few accessories, you can get to around $500 US. So it is an expensive system. So if you're looking for something like that, send me an email at canadiancuttingedge@gmail.com, and I will put you in contact with the person who is selling the K03 or trading it for some good knives. So here's a close-up of it. You got a nice diamond texture on the main panels there on this nylon. They just say it's nylon. I bet you it's, and I did try to scrape at a spot that wasn't too obvious. That I think it's fiber reinforced nylon. I don't think it's just nylon. It would have been nice if they would have said FRN instead of just N molded nylon, but I really hope it's FRN compared to just nylon. They added the screws for the left side, so you don't just have empty holes there. It's a tiny touch, but hey, that's a nice professional touch. Here's the pocket clip, a very functional pocket clip, but it is a little ugly. They have to include their, oh, come on, Jake. What's the name of that big thing that they smack on with their iron when they're doing their shaping and the forging? There's my brain on pain. Anyhow, the great big symbol there, I wish they would have made this more typical. I think it's a bit ugly. Some people like this pocket clip. Some people hate this pocket clip. I'm a little bit in between. I don't hate it, but I'm not too terribly fond of this pocket clip either. But it is functional. We go into a pocket like this. Anvil. See, I knew that word. And so that's what it looks like in a pocket. It totally hides away. Somebody from up high looking down might be able to see a little bit of splash of color there. So it's not a huge thing. Oh, because it's wider like this, and even because of the Anvil logo in there, you put your thumb on here and you get a better grip to pull it out. So very, very functional, but it's a little bit funny looking, at least to me and maybe to some other people as well. In the grand scheme of things, this pocket clip is more of a pro than it is a con, because I'm glad that they have it. The LT, the very cheapest budget model of this that they have, isn't made as well. I have not owned one, but I've touched a few, and they just aren't pinned together quite as sturdily and as well. And those ones come with a lanyard hole instead of a pocket clip. But you do get the same 420 HC blade. So if you're really just trying to get this nice buck blade, and you have to get it the most cost-effective way possible, the LT is the way to go that way. But it's not that much more to get this nylon version. Let me show you a picture of the four colors. What you do have, as I was saying, is this typical buck blade. So you get this clip point, you got a swedge on top, hollow grind, 420 HC, but you got thumb studs right here, and they're nice and high. They actually work a little bit as a thumb pad. So when your thumb's on there, you can actually push down on the sides of that a little bit more control. No jimping back here. The steel does bump up ever so slightly right there. At the end of this lock arm, there's a little bit of a bump, and at the end of the blade here, there's a smaller bump right there. And they come together, so that's a little spot that really gives you a good sense. Without looking, you can just tell where your thumb is, and you know exactly where you are with your thumb. Even if you're not up to the thumb studs yet, you know exactly where you are right here. So nothing wrong with that at all. And then you get a smooth back for your back spring for the lock. It pivots on that pin right there. So you push this down and the lock lifts up over here. And that's what releases the arm. Back lock was designed by Buck, and they've done a great job with it over the years. And when the back lock is way at the back here, this release, that's when they can put on the strongest springs, and there's a good strong spring holding this thing together. So that's a really good thing. They stonewashed the blade, and they sharpened mine a number of times. As you can see, let's get a close-up of this blade here. So if you're looking at the blade here, you can see that the blade ended down here, and so they've sharpened it a number of times between my nail and the sharpening the edge itself. You can see where it came down right here. And some guys even get their knives with a bit of a recurve because of that. My knife, in fact, has been sharpened so much, it's shorter than the average. It's shorter than the dimensions given by Buck by over 1/8 of an inch. And, it's shorter when you go to close it. And, I can give you a close-up picture of this spot right here. It's, the end of the knife comes well before, they give you a nice cutaway on this piece back here and everything. It doesn't even come close to, getting there. And it's designed for a longer blade, but I think what they've got is somebody on their sharpening crew that knows how to make a blade sharp, but, it's been taken a little bit too many times at the grinding wheel to get it to that point. And so we've got a pretty sharp edge. It's got a good rating for that. I'll come on to that later, but I don't like how many times they had to sharpen this to get it there. I don't like how much steel they had to remove. I can't say that for sure because I don't have one of their blanks that I could put right beside it before it was sharpened to show you exactly. But I do think that, this knife was over sharpened a little bit. And I've heard that same complaint, and I've only watched one other Buck review, and, I saw it on that Buck review as well. I don't generally watch reviews before I make my own, but I remember seeing one for the Buck Slim not that long ago, and they had that complaint. So I don't really like that, but the fact that it's a hollow grind, no problem there. And it's a nice blade shape, feels really good in hand. The classic thing that I said this about my Buck 110 review as well. Great big flat ricasso here. That's sort of a waste of space. I would like if the sharpness of the blade came, took up half of this space of this ricasso. Why not have more cutting edge there? This isn't comfortable to put your finger here. So if your finger is going to be back here, why not have a sharp edge go even further? And that's just my own little beef about that. So that's those things about the blade. Zoom back out here. It's smooth action, even though it's pinned together. Slides quite well. You can lubricate the pivot there if you want to. Just drop some lube in there. And no problem at all. Good action. The spring is quite strong, this detent spring. Once it goes past a certain ways, you can just hear it go. Yeah, it clunks shut. And when it's locked shut, it works very, very well indeed. So you've got all those good things to talk about. The fit and finish, pretty good. It's a good looking knife, and it's a good feeling knife. It's a bigger knife. Let's go through all the dimensions right now. All right, the dimensions. The weight of this knife, 84 grams, 2.95 ounces. Again, the Buck website says it's 2.8 ounces. Mine's 2.95, even though the blade is shorter, and I'll talk about that in just a second. The sharpness of the cutting edge from the factory is 125 grams of pressure needed to cut. So that's very good. They did a great job doing that. And I'll explain why in a minute. The length of the cutting edge is 8.17 centimeters, 3.22 inches. So 3¼ inches almost. The blade length, so tip of the blade to the closest spot on the handle here, is 9.01 centimeters, 3.55 inches. And they say that it's 3.75 inches. So, that's well over 1/8 of an inch. That should be longer on this blade, that it's not. Again, manufacturers tend to, have their measurements be a little bit off. That's normal. But normally at Buck, their measurements are more accurate than a number of other manufacturers. So I think this knife just got a little bit more time being sharpened than it should have, which made that tip come a little bit smaller, and it's a little bit thicker at the tip right there than my other Buck 110 is. I'll show you the other Buck 110 with this knife later on. Okay, so that's what we got there. Now the blade depth, that's this measurement right here, and its biggest right about here, 2.04 centimeters, 0.8 of an inch. The thickness of the edge right behind the grind right there 0.53 millimeters, which is 0.021 inches. So that's exactly what I like to find in a knife like this. The grind angles. Now this is kind of weird. The grind angle on this side, the blank side, there's no, the right side, 13 degrees. So they ground this angle right here at 13 degrees. You know, most EDC style knives are done at around 20 degrees per side. 13, 16 and a half. So that's much more shallow than a lot of knives come from the factory. So that's an average of about 15 degrees per side, roughly. And that's one of the reasons why it cut through that filament so well with so little pressure of only 125 grams. So when I resharpen this knife, I'll probably do it at 15 degrees per side just to even it out. And maybe 16 per side, you know, but not go straight to 20 because it was fairly durable. This 420 HC, Buck knows how to do this steel. Their heat treatment is awesome, and they've used this steel for so long. They're just really, really good at it. And so there's that. Rest of the measurements here, the handle length. The handle length is 12.53 centimeters, 4.93 inches. The grip area in here is roughly 11.2 centimeters, about 4.4 inches, something like that. It's kind of hard to say exactly what the grip area is because some people grip higher up and further back than others. The handle thickness is 1.04 centimeters, which is 0.41 of an inch. So it is the slim. Most knives are around half an inch thick, so 0.4 definitely is slimmer. So even though it's a big knife, most people will have no problem at all grabbing this knife and controlling it very well in their hands, regardless of hand size. Even if you've got extra large hands, if I grasp it right close to the pivot there, you still have lots of knife here, and my hands are just borderline between large and extra large. So yeah, people have a lot of handle to work with on this knife, and yet it's small enough that people with small hands can use it as well. The handle depth. So right there, the handle depth, how wide it is this way, 2.45 centimeters, 0.965 inches. And then when you close the knife, it's biggest right there. And that is 3.22 centimeters, 1.27 inches. And the total length of this knife is 21.5 centimeters, 8.5 inches. So you get 8.5 inches altogether. And on this knife, some people will get a little bit more because the blade will come out a little bit further, but that's what I got, 8.5 inches here. So it's not bad at all. I need to take a break. So what's the price for this knife? The price is $32.99 US. That's right around 43 Canadian, 29 euros, 25 British pounds. If you can get it for the same price as it is in the States, that is. But you can get 10% off at White Mountain Knives using coupon code CCE. If this size is too much for you, consider getting the Buck 112. It's the exact same style knife in every way, except for it's physically just a little bit smaller. Fit and finish on this thing, I think it's very good. I can't say excellent because, you know, I would really like the fit and finish to involve screws. But that's more design than it is fit and finish. The pocket clip being a little bit ugly, and they didn't use flat screws there, you know, and the sharpening of it here, that's why it can't get excellent. But it's got a good rating for fit and finish. You get Bucks made in USA. It just says USA right there. It is made in USA. If you're wondering about that, this one was made in 2018 with their year stamp there. And, you know, I do like that Buck doesn't put their name and stuff all over the knife. Well, it says Buck here as well. And you get the Buck logo there, and but it's small. See, they're not doing an in-your-face kind of thing with their logos, and I like that a fair bit. The texture in here, this diamond pattern, is also a little bit helpful for grip, so I do like that. The pocket clip does not make hot spots in the hand, you know, so I do like the fit and finish a fair bit, but it's not quite to the excellent mark. I like the lightweight. I like this, classic feel that this knife handle gives. It's a slight swoop there and just a slight expansion as you get further back, and a little bit bigger up here. So it does offer a little bit of a guarded hand. If you are going to use this to pierce anything, make sure you put your thumb across the back, so that your hand's not going to come up over the blade. But the knife can be gripped so many ways and still be very comfortable in hand. Pinch grip, fist grip, classic saber grip, reverse grip, reverse pull grip even. So many grips just work just fine on this thing. The lock is a very strong lock. Great. It's slim, it's discreet, doesn't take a lot of weight in your pocket, and you've got a big knife there if you need it. It's nice. The cons on this knife. Well, I already mentioned the cons. I wish there was a sharpness choil. I'll give you a close-up picture of this. It'll show you how much steel was taken off before they got to the sharp edge. I like sharpness choils because it helps it to sharpen right to the end. You can do a clean job more easily. This one just means you have to be more attentive. I might put my own sharpness choil in there, and I've got a video about sharpness choils coming up very soon. It's made quite sharp, but the angles are quite different. 13 and 16.5. That's 3.5 degrees difference from one side to another, and that's the nature of sharpening by hand. You can't always get the same angle. Mine is, over 1/8 of an inch smaller than specs. It is still pinned together instead of them starting to use screws to put it together, which I really wish they would do. So there's all of that. It's good. It's not great, but it's a good knife. If you're looking for a buck, if you've never had a buck knife before, they are a company that's worth getting more exposure to. If you're a knife collector, I like to tell people, get yourself a buck, at least one, just so that, not so that you can say that you have one, but because they're a classic knife company from the United States, and they make good knives, and it's simply good to, get a wide breadth of different knives into your hands, because then you'll develop your own tastes a little bit more. Or you might end up like me, saying you just like every knife out there. Like if it's a knife, you like it, which I am like. But there are other guys, they get more exposure and then they start to realize they like very specific things. So it's good to get a buck. They're not all that expensive. They're readily available right now. And let me show you my other 110 next to this. My regular buck comes in a nice leather sheath. You can now buy them in cheaper Cordura sheaths and other things as well. There's the knife. And let's put those next to each other right here. And there you go. You do notice that this knife is bigger. It's not just optics. Change the angles around here a little bit. And put these knives next to each other again. You get them at the same starting point over here. It is a little bit smaller than that knife. You just have a bigger knife right here, even though, the size right here is the same. The handles are the same size. I don't want to berate that point. It's just what it is. I like this clip a little bit better. So this one's got a straight clip here. This one's got a nice Bowie clip with a little bit of curve in it. And, it's their classic knife. So it's similar, and they're both made in the U.S. by Buck, but they're not exactly the same thing, of course. Some closing thoughts on this knife. Is it worth buying? I think so. I like it. It feels good. It looks good. It functions fairly well. It's not an excellent knife, but it's a good, solid buck knife. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And remember, guys, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.